We have got New York at our back fence, Di, and for all our listeners here. So, that's really good. And if you don't know who Dr. Shefali is, I think that the whole world does, but if you don't, she's a world-renowned clinical psychologist, international parenting expert, a New York best-selling author of so many books, including The Conscious Parent, The Awakening Family. Di's holding it, you call it the Bible, don't you? A Radical Awakening, The Parenting Map. She's the host of Parenting in Your Podcast, founder of the Conscious Parenting Movement, one of Oprah's biggest fans, and you've been to Montecito and sat under that tree and been in there, which is just wonderful. She's coming on our podcast, so we're excited about that. And as I said, I was really fortunate to see Dr. Shefali in Sydney just recently, and there's so much wisdom. And you know what I loved too so much, but a takeaway too was that you've got such a great sense of humour, and you made it us all relax, that there's no such thing as being the perfect parent, the perfect person. We're all evolving. We're all students of life. So with that, there's so much to talk about. It's a real treat. Welcome to the back fence,
Welcome,
Dr. Shefali.
Thank you for your warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
I've been following you for 400 years. I have, honestly. Of course, I'm holding the book, A Radical Awakening. Dr. Shefali, as Nicola was just mentioning, is that a lot of people relate to you as like, oh, well, if you've got kids, you listen to Dr. Shefali. But you've helped me to understand how many of us are walking around with our childhood issues on our shoulders as adults. But I wanted to start by saying, in the book you wrote, sharing my life story in these pages has been an act of leaning into discomfort. At times, I resisted it out of fear of your disapproval. Yet, I knew that I had to work through these fears. If I didn't, I wouldn't share. And if I didn't share, I wouldn't grow. If I didn't grow, neither would you. So therefore, that's how I want to start. Tell us about your beginnings. Tell us share with us your childhood, Dr. Shefali.
Oh, well, my childhood was in India, in Mumbai. And as a little girl, I was starkly aware of, the beauty and comfort of my home. I actually grew up in quite a functional home, at least how my parents were with me was very functional. And I had I still have a warm, deep, profoundly safe relationship with both my parents. I've been very lucky. I have an older brother. I don't think he feels the same way, but there was some magic between me and my parents that made it I made them safe. They made me safe. The child also has a lot to do unconsciously inadvertently with how the parent feels, right? Because sometimes the children and parents are not a match, and the child's nervous system is not a match for the parent's nervous system and vice versa. But that's why I teach what I teach, that the parent needs to attune to the child because the child is just unconscious. But I was lucky that my mother and I had a very synchronized nervous system. So we really I was good for her. She was good for me. I don't think my brother was at the same for her. My brother drove her crazy. But when I was young, I was starkly aware that there were inequalities of astute proportions in India. And I didn't like how women were treated. I, used to make vehement statements in my mind, when I grow up, I'll never let a man talk to me like that. And I'll never do this, I'll never do that. And it had a profound impact on me, so much so that I decided by the age of 12 that I wanted to leave. And, we were from a middle-class family. So in India, which means that I never left until I finally left. So I never got to see where I was going. But I knew from the age of 12 that I wanted to leave and just be free. And India was stifling for me. The inequalities of wealth, the inequalities in gender, they really claustrophobized me so much that I used to look at people around me and go, how come they're not bothered? Like I cannot take it. And I think it was because I was sensitive, I was absorbent. So by the age of 21, finally, I had enough money. I begged my father and said, I need to go. And I just came for the first time ever on an international flight. I'd never even left. I know it's unheard of now for a 21-year-old to never have left their country, but back then things were different. And I came to San Francisco, and I went to a school in San Francisco called the California Institute of Integral Studies, which is where I was exposed to East meets West thinking.
Fabulous.
Eastern spirituality with Western psychology. And that's what you will find infused in all my work.
Very much so.
And that's what we love about your work too. We were sort of saying too, we had I'm sure you'd know her too, the late Dr. Gladys McGarvey, and she spent a lot of time, I think, in India.
Have you heard of Dr. Gladys McGarvey?
I haven't.
Yes, well-lived life. She's a doctor, but she's interesting being an American, but she spent a lot of time in India as well. But she's sort of with a lot of her holistic, sort of with counselling and with that. But and then you went to Columbia University, is that correct? And is that where you studied? And where did you get then that drive to actually wanted to? Where did it come from to actually become a clinical psychologist and sort of really specialise in this area?
No, I kind of knew I wanted to help people because I was doing it anyway. Yeah. It was what I did in my family. I was always the mediator, always the fixer, always the helper, always the bringer of peace and sanity everywhere I went. It was absolutely not even something I thought about. I just had to ask the universe, what is the formal title of what I do? And the answer was, a psychologist. I'm like, okay, I've been doing this all along. So that was a no-brainer. And then the decision to awaken myself to become a conscious parent really came from my own pain as a mother and seeing that I was really unconscious. And it just awakened in me that there's a big hoax in the parenting paradigm that no one is talking about, which is the parent's ego. No one is talking about the parent's ego. Everyone's talking about, is the child good? Is the child bad? Is the child smart? What is your child going to do? Is your child an athlete? The focus was so child-centric. But what about the parent? And why wasn't anyone ever talking about the parent's bad behavior? So back then, when I started this, in 2000 and, when my daughter was 3 years old, 2006, very, very few, you could barely have a smattering of a few East-West psychologists, spiritual teachers talking about the ego of the parent. But when I became a parent and I saw my own ego and I saw how I was influencing my child's behavior, I was literally, possibly creating bad behavior. And I could see why and how. My lack of boundaries, my inability to say no, my desire to please, whatever. Or it could be Samantha, somebody else's bad temper, or Phil's alcoholism. But that was not being talked about back then. So I decided to do that. And I approached Eckhart Tolle's publisher because I felt most aligned with Eckhart and he's a friend now. And I wrote to her and I said, very, very boldly, because I had nothing to lose. I said, I am, I said, with such audacity, Eckhart's answer to parenting.
That's a great one.
How good is that too, when you've got the self-belief and you say it?
Because she was so into Eckhart. So I said, he's not talking parenting. He's not a parent. And she wrote back the same day and she said, I've been waiting for Eckhart's answer to parenting. And I had a book deal within, 3 weeks. I went to Vancouver and I didn't have a proposal. I didn't have anything except my talking like I'm talking to you. And she gave me a book deal, and that was The Conscious Parent, which came out in, 2007, I think. And 2010. I'm sorry. I wrote it in 2007. When my daughter was 4 years old.
How remarkable, though, Nicola, that Dr. Shefali, the trigger point because I was dying to know what the trigger point for you going down this remarkable conscious parenting road, but it was you actually being a parent. And on that note, I really want to know how much of who we are is just our childhood running the show?
A lot, until we begin to become aware and do this work. And that's why I have an institute. I then open an institute because I realized this needs to be formalized. You know, people can read books, but they need training to undo their patterns. And therapy is so expensive and takes forever. We need like a concentrated institute. And yeah, so a lot of our patterns are indoctrinated in early childhood, and they are behind the wheel. And it takes a lot for a conscious adult to come online. A
That's
lot of work.
so good, and I love what you said there, Diane. Just for someone who's maybe coming to you for the first time, Dr. Shefali, and listening to this, can you just sort of explain really like conscious parenting, being conscious, being self-aware, what it is, if we can sort of get to the sort of like the basics of it?
Right. Well, at its core, in a sentence, if I had to be brash, it's really the parent raising themselves so they don't pass down their shit. Okay, like that's just
that's
the
good.
most basic way.
Childhood, carrying the childhood.
Right.
Yes,
And projecting, and it doesn't even have to be
yeah.
childhood trauma necessarily. The parent projecting all of their stuff, meaning, I want you to be a ballerina. I want you to be, at Harvard. I want you, and thinking that that's their right because they own the child. So what I did in my work is really debunk this whole notion that you own your children and that you possess them, and you actually don't. They come to you, like Khalil Gibran said, but they actually come through you. You know, they are not belonging to you. And that premise is so difficult for parents because they feel that their children owe them something and that their children are obligated to follow their way. So parents have no compunction copy pasting any fantasy onto their child and demanding allegiance. And then when the child doesn't fall in line, then they're taken to therapy. They are a bad child, that they don't want to follow the religious tradition or the family tradition or the academic, generational patterns of, like, we all went to Ivy League schools, or we all were baseball players, or whatever that is. It's so sad that we ensnare our children and entrap them at such a young age in our fantasy, or to follow our footsteps without really thinking that our children deserve to be sovereign.
It's fascinating because you mention a lot about the word control as a parent. Now, there's a lot of people listening, and I did hear in your Oprah interview about, she mentioned, well, you've got to have parameters with children, obviously, from a safety factor. But how do you identify control versus safety? Like, you talk about letting a child live freely, and I'm 100% then, because I'm all about a child in nature, get them away from social media. But there's also the safety issue. Don't go near water. Don't go near roads.
Yeah. So, being a conscious parent doesn't mean being, senseless. You are aware that you have a child whose brain is not yet formed. Their prefrontal cortex is not developed. It'll take a long time. Therefore, if you're going to have a child, you've got to understand, just like if you had any living being in your home, what do they need? What are their needs? How does their brain function? And what kind of safety you need to provide for them. I have a cat right now. I'm not equating cats and children, but I know not to open the door because the cat will go out. So in the same way, this doesn't absolve us from being in charge. When I mean control, I mean going beyond the bounds of sensible safety, where you are now imposing your ways of being onto your child. So that's control.
And it's interesting too,
that's great about what you were saying then about the control with the parent. So what is that control?
Right. So let's talk about what is normal to control, quote unquote control, or to be in charge of. What's normal are the non-negotiables of life, such as your hygiene, If we were hunter-gatherers, hygiene wouldn't be such a big topic, but here hygiene is a topic. So, okay, social connections, right? You have to kind of respect everybody around you, and you can't be a narcissist asshole. You have to get along with community. You have to take care of yourself, whatever that means. And because we live in a capitalist economy, you have to find a way to one day be responsible. So if you think an adult has to be responsible, you begin to teach that to the child from a young age. Put the keys there, put your backpack here, let's make the bed together, right? You begin to teach responsibility, because we live in a nuclear setup, in a capitalist society, where you're going to have to live on your own. And anyway, that's a good thing. You have to pull your own weight, even if you were in a tribe. So these non-negotiables, right? And you have to keep yourself safe. You can't say you want to commit suicide. You cannot be on drugs. You cannot be on harmful substances. I will pull my weight and my rank if I see that. I will pull my weight and rank if I see you being disrespectful and hitting people, bullying people, being racist, right? So those are non-negotiables, but that's just like sensible wisdom, right, of life. But then how you do it is being conscious, right? Do you do it by belittling your child, shaming your child, demeaning your child, punishing, or do you do it beautifully? And everything else out of those non-negotiables are negotiable. Example, I want my child to play an instrument. The child doesn't want to play an instrument. An unconscious parent will say, you have to play an instrument. A conscious parent will negotiate. Can you try it out for 6 months? Can we make a deal? And if the child is like, no, I can't stand it, then the parent has to say, okay, you don't want to play an instrument, but I need you to do some hobby, some activity, and you negotiate. But parents don't realize that if they make everything non-negotiable, now we're going to have power struggles, right? So let's keep a few things non-negotiable, and the rest, I'm sorry, you're going to have to negotiate. And people don't like to do that with children because it takes too much time. But that's how you raise a child who grows up to be sovereign, resilient, empowered, feels like they have a voice, and they feel competent.
I grew up in a family of 8 kids, Dr. Shefali, and I have this very fond memory of saying goodbye to Mum at 9 o'clock in the morning with 3 of my sisters. We went off all day and came back at 5 o'clock. She was stirring the pot, and not literally like an actual pot. And she said, where have you been? We said, oh, we went to a cave and we met 4 men that lived in the cave. And she was like, oh my God. And we explained to her how exciting it was, and we learnt so much. And I guess we were just set free. Mum used to also say, if you fall, you'll do your greatest learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think when our children fall or when they're sad, it activates our sense of helplessness so much and our need to be needed that we jump in, we overfix, we over hover and helicopter. So all I'm doing in conscious parenting is really just asking the parent to always factor themselves in, always look at themselves as a co-creator, if not the creator of their child, because the children, when they're young, really can't have much impact on us. We have an impact on them. And that simple awareness profoundly changes the entire dynamic. You will be hard-pressed to punish your kid if you begin to see how you were in the dynamic. And you won't judge them, you won't demean them, you won't criticize them, because you're seeing how you were in the dynamic.
I also, there's so much I wrote down from this book. I love how you said a parent, what's successful parenting? And you said a parent that dares to raise themselves first.
Mm.
I love that.
Yeah. Can you explain that a bit more?
Magic.
Like, how do you do
Magic.
that? When you're not really aware of it, because we've all...
Here's the even more profound wisdom there. In order to declare that I will raise myself first is the ultimate self-responsibility. And it can only happen when you fully believe that the other person, your partner, your child, your friend, is sovereign, and you trust their sovereignty to show up. So it doesn't mean you're letting your kid loose. It just means that you're trusting that every human has a spark that will be lit up in self-preservation, in self-celebration, in self-honor, if you don't tamper with it too much. So what I teach is focus on you first. Is your light lit up? Are you springing through the day? Are you singing in the shower? Are you abundant? And then look at your child with abundance. You know, because I trust myself as a parent, because I love myself as a parent, because I accept myself as a human. When you begin to live like that, you will look at your child in the same way. I trust them to love themselves. I trust them to accept themselves, and I accept them. And it's a different sort of qualitative experience, and the relationship is different versus one where you feel like the child is lacking and you need to fix them. You know, it's a very different mission here. Here it's about you raise yourself, your child is good. If you take care of yourself, your child will fall into alignment because you won't have tampered with them or messed with them so much. But that means you have to accept them for who they are in their essence. But that can only happen if you accept yourself. We can never accept our children if we don't accept ourselves. So if our child is not so smart in math, if our child has got pimples and acne at 16, if our child did not get into the fantastic school, we will react negatively, controllingly, punishingly, unless and until we are okay with the parts of us that are less than perfect. You see? It's very profound, because when the reason why we want our children to be amazing is because we are not okay with our parts that are not amazing.
Exactly.
If we were okay with ourselves and we knew ourselves, see, any human who knows themselves knows that they're not the cat's whiskers. If you really know yourself, you know you're pretty ordinary. And if you really love yourself, you're pretty okay with that.
But what's one powerful shift we can make to stop the past invading our world as a parent or our world in general? Is there one particular starting point that you could suggest to our listeners?
You know, it's so not easy. It's like saying, how do
Really?
how do I stop drinking alcohol? Okay, well, you sign up for the, AA meetings. Okay, how do I sign up for the AA meetings? Well, you make up your mind. How do you make up your mind? Well, you realize you have a problem. So that's it. Until
Number
you
one, acknowledge it.
Awareness.
Exactly.
you have to admit helplessness.
Yeah.
Realize that you're screwing it up and you need help. Until you don't come to that place of humility, people just bullshit their way, and they just say sorry to their children, but they're actually trying to still fix their children. They try to not control their children, but they're really controlling their children. It's just been, just a pretty wrapping. So that's why most people who come to me on their knees. They don't come to me, in 8th grade. They come to me in 12th grade. They don't come to me at the start of the problem, or even when they're watching the problem develop. They come to me when it's almost impossible, because it takes a long time for parents to realize that they need help. It's this delusion of like, no, I can just power my way through this. I'll just yell at them louder. I'll just control them. I'll scream at them. I'll get them tutors. I'll give them gifts. I'll get them plastic surgery. I'll send them to an expensive school. And we have to fix this. And the problem is never a cosmetic problem. It's never superficial. It's something deep within the child and within the relationship with you, which is very hard for people to accept.
You know what? That's so true, and the awareness, and I love what you do, and we're doing some stuff with B Centre, and they use play therapy and as a healing tool and for children. What's your view and take on play therapy?
play therapy is the only way of doing therapy with a child. Play
Wow.
is the
How's
child's.
that?
Love that. This is
Be centre.
this
This is
is
good. We're
great.
MCs for them, and
Yeah.
that's a great
Love
thing.
it.
100%.
Yeah.
100. You have to do play therapy as a parent. You have to play with your child, and I know many parents don't like to play. It doesn't matter. Something
But
needs to
also all
play.
let them play.
Or let them play. It's
Yes.
their language.
Yes.
Everything should be play. If we made everything play, our children would swim through childhood. If we made math play and geography play and brushing teeth play and everything is
love
play,
that.
right? You teach your child tables through a dance and a fun rhyme, and that's children's language. They're so creative. They're so full of beans. They're so ready to play. And we've taken the play out of childhood, and we have literally numbed and dulled their soul, you know?
My God.
It's true when you see,
What a great
the
line.
screen put in front of the kids, the tablet. Now, look, occasionally to see a movie or something like that, and it's all part of life and the life that we're living in, so we all have to adapt to that. But,
Yeah.
as you're sort of saying, when you were younger, you'd have that childhood and
Be
could run
free.
around and
Be
be
free.
free and play. But it's just good to hear how important it is, and I love hearing you say, well, that's the only thing. And really, I think with the B Centre tour, that especially it's from sort of like, I guess, from 0 to 12 is an area where they really sort of like,
Prime.
prime. But it's sometimes it's hard, for sort of someone who's been conditioned and they've come from a strict background, and it's like that you sit there, I'm the man, and I sit at the head of the table, and this is how it is. That day, I'm not going to sort of play that, or that stops now. It's difficult sometimes to get sort of someone to do that. Is there any sort of thing that you can do, or is it just ultimately the work within? It's our own
It's really
individual.
hard. Yeah, the parents who can't play probably were not allowed to play
Yeah.
in childhood.
Yes.
And they've been traumatized out of play and into their head. Because to play, you have to be truly irrational.
Love it.
It's
to be
true.
like,
It's true. Yeah.
I agree. Kooky. We call it kooky. Just
Yeah,
be
you got-
kooky.
right.
We're
You're
still
like,
big
oh,
kids. Maybe
We are.
that's,
Nicker
maybe
and I
that's
can
our
be
fun
kooky.
because like we're at this age now, we're still big kids.
Yeah. You have to be, willing to be embarrassed and silly and dumb, and there are no rules, right? You know how children are. You were frogs, and now you're suddenly leopards and caterpillar, and you're like, what? I thought we were frogs. You don't do that. You don't tell children, no, we are. You said we are frogs. Let's be frogs. The child has moved on to the next moment. No, now we're birds. Now we're birds. So parents have a hard time because we parents have so lodged ourselves into our rational minds that we literally cannot leave that to be in the poetry of the moment like children are. Children are poets of the present moment. They can make beauty out of any moment, right? They're just masters. And to not enjoy a child that's young is really an experience missed because let me tell you, they're a pain in the behind, but they're so magical in their capacity to be in the present moment, and just for that you should be around a kid even if you don't have one.
You know what?
Just
That's the joy
birth.
of you
Yeah.
being a grandparent, I think, too. I
Yeah.
think for people sometimes
I'm
getting a
loving
second
it.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving being a grandparent.
That they can actually
Yeah.
do all that.
I'm more kooky with the grandkids than I've ever been in my whole life. And in fact, on that note, over to you, Dr. Shefali. I mean, being a grandparent, I find that I have less boundaries around my grandchildren than I did around my children. I really acknowledge that. I mean, look, sure, I drive out the drive. They say no sugar and I give him a lolly. But I'm allowed to do that because I'm the grandparent. But it is fascinating, the dynamics, watching myself as a different human with my grandchildren.
Right, you're not so anxious,
Yes.
and you're wiser, and
Well,
you
I hope
realize,
so.
you know,
But it's true,
With age
though.
comes wisdom.
Yeah, yeah.
your ego has been beaten out of you a bit.
Oh
You know,
my
you don't give a shit.
Love
You-
that.
You don't have so many F's to give. Like you've seen life too much now, and all the things that you would have hung your hat on, you would have died on the stake for. You now have perspective. So, these parents, they go crazy. No, she cannot eat that. It's so bad for her teeth. Or my kids need to be in bed by 8 o'clock. You're like, you're like, okay, who cares? Like, it's not a big deal. Don't make it a science. But when you were a parent, those things mattered a lot because our ego was much bigger. Our uncertainty was much bigger. Our anxiety was much bigger. We had a lot at stake in our identity as parents. But by the time you become a grandparent, you realize, you know what? There is nothing called perfection, and you stop chasing perfection at this age, right? So you're so relaxed around your grandchildren, and that's why parents should not raise children. Grandparents should raise children. It should always skip a generation, and the parents should go work. That's how it used to be in the hunter-gatherer tribes. The older people took care of the children. The young, able bodies went out and worked, because wisdom, children need wisdom, not ego, which is what you have when you're in your 30s and 40s.
And I love how you say, in fact, Nick and I were talking in the car driving in, how children can actually be a mirror to who and what you are.
No, I love
Which
that.
I'd never thought or heard that before or acknowledged that. But then I'm driving in after talking to Nick going, a mirror to whom what you are, a child.
Yeah.
It's actually remarkable.
It is. Can you
Well,
tell us
because
about your
Yeah,
daughter
yeah,
too? Because you
yeah,
shared that.
because it's
with-
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maya.
Yeah. But because it's such an intimate relationship, the child becomes a mirror to your unresolved issues. So, for example, if your child is a teenager, I remember my daughter used to walk from home from school and come home and didn't want to talk to me because she was so overstimulated. And at first, so if you go with the analogy of a mirror, she doesn't want to talk, and now I'm feeling upset and rejected. She's a mirror to my feeling upset and rejected. So she's an invitation for me to look at what's coming up and go, wow, right? She's not the problem. She's a mirror. So if you don't have this perspective, if a child comes home from school, doesn't want to talk, the parent could easily say, my goodness, you're so rude, you're so disrespectful, and go after the kid. But if you go with this one sentence, the child is a mirror to your unresolved issues. Now she comes home, they're quote unquote not talking, uncommunicative. I'm feeling like, oh my God, she's so disrespectful. Before I react, because I know she's a mirror, I go, oh, look what's coming up. I'm feeling she's disrespectful. Where is this coming from? It's coming from my belief system that children need to talk to me. And if they don't, that means they're disrespectful because they owe me a hello and a greeting and a report of the day. And then I begin to deconstruct my belief systems, you see? So always having that perspective, but really not only children, every relationship is a mirror to your unresolved stuff, but children more than any, because they really grew up with you. So who can you blame? With your partner, you can blame his mother, you can blame his father, but with your child, it's you. So it's an invitation to your awakening.
So
beautiful.
deconstruct your belief system, you just said.
Yes.
That's one way of analysing or trying to cope in that scenario, or a better understanding of who you are. How would you start by deconstructing your belief system in a moment like that?
Yeah, it's something I just have to say honestly, people need to get trained on. I wrote a book called The Parenting Map. It has 20 steps of deconstruction, so you can read it. But again, I'm just saying these are things you have to go to a coach for or my institute.
Okay, so that's a good starting point.
Yeah, you have to. You can read the book. I give step by step. I give 20 beautiful steps with illustrations on how to do this work. It's in my book, The Parenting Map. There are steps, but they're so.
Give us some examples of those steps.
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
Pause is one, I would imagine.
What did you say?
Pause before you
Pause, yeah.
argue.
Yes. So the first thing you have to always do is to pause before you open your mouth if you're feeling reactive.
Deep breathe.
Yeah,
isn't it?
deep
Take the
breath.
breath.
That's it.
I always
That's
sort of
it.
think it's breath work.
Notice what's happening in your body. The minute you tighten up, the minute you clench your jaw, the minute your heart is racing, you have to be connected. You have to observe your body and make yourself safe. You must regulate your body. There's no point in talking if you're not regulated. Similarly, if your child is not regulated, don't talk. Don't talk until your child is regulated. And so you pause, you regulate, you create safety. And then before you communicate, you ask yourself, is this about me, something about my belief system, or this is truly, truly, objectively bad about what my kid is doing? And you try to parse that out. And so the kid coming home and not wanting to talk, is it really such a bad thing? Or is it my belief system that she needs to give me a report? Similarly, if the child comes home with a C grade, is it really a bad thing? Or is it my conditioning that C grades are not good? Now, I know some of you will hear it and say, well, C grades are not good. Right, but that C grade may be a good thing because it could catapult a whole trajectory of new experiences. We don't know yet. But our automatic robotic response is C grades are bad. But that's not true. Some of my biggest pivots have come from C grade failures, right? So this is what I'm talking about. This automatic response comes from patterned, habituated belief systems that we need to pause and deconstruct.
It's interesting.
It's
As Dr.
fascinating that way
Shefali's
to-
talking
yes,
about parent and child, I can't help thinking in a partnership, in a relationship,
That's what
like
I love
between
about
two
it
adults.
too. You know, like all
It's
your
the same.
work is exactly the same too,
Yes.
and so much of it is, you know, when people blame the other person or
Yes.
blame that, whereas you know, ultimately it's once again coming within, owning it yourself.
100%.
But it's interesting, you know, you're saying with the triggers. So if your partner's doing this, all of a sudden you instantly react. Well, it's really, is that correct? This is a really good time to stop and go, wow.
Yeah.
Look
Where's
how
it
I
coming
am.
from?
Look at where's this coming from, and your body's talking to you. And
Is it
we
them
love
or
your
me?
work so
I
much.
love
Yeah,
it.
it makes us to be so aware, and then step back,
And it's
pause,
very hard
breathe.
to do because culture says how a good husband should be, a good wife should be, and if you deviate from that, we all have an automatic response, right? So, for example, I get a lot of couples who come see me where one has kind of stepped out of the relationship and had a moment of indiscretion or many moments, and culture has told us that that is bad, right? So the person who quote unquote is the victim is unconscionably irate, like she cannot even or he cannot even think in the moment, and that's so much suffering, right? When actually it may have been something just innocent, or it may have been because person X, the partner, was feeling their own feelings, right? But culture has indoctrinated us so much to call these things good and bad, and that's it. And it's a binary system, it's dualistic, but no human can hold only one end of a duality because there's no, it's always a continuum, it's always non-dual, and we don't allow for the full human experience because we want to box people in to these very clear binaries in order for ourselves to feel certain.
And it comes back to, I guess, you know, where the, you know, your culture, your beliefs, your, you know, where you sort of come from, and people come with different expectations. But why do you say, and you say sometimes the biggest gift is rock bottom? It's not 80%. It's actually when people do the biggest changes, that time to really look in and go, you know what, oh, maybe I was looking for all my answers through this man or through my perfect children or whatever.
Or a Bentley or a Cartier watch.
But you have to go, you strip bare. What's your take on it, or how can you sort of help us with that? Because a lot of people maybe don't want to get to that rock bottom. But is it a gift, that pain to purpose?
You know, the reason why I say that the ultimate change happens at rock bottom is because there are no more lies and no more fantasies, and the ego cannot trick you into like, you know, I'll just dye my hair, maybe he'll love me then, or maybe I'll just, you know, have one more glass of wine and I'll be okay. It's that moment where you realize that that you have to give up the fantasy has to die, or you will die. So which one is going to die? And when you realize that the fantasy has to die because you don't want to die, then you resurrect yourself and you reconstruct an entire new way of living, which is very grief inducing, because you have a lot of grief because you lived the past how many X number of years with that identity, and that didn't serve you. So now you have to recreate a new identity, and it's painful because you liked that identity, so letting go of the old identity it takes a lot of grieving and letting go.
It's the gifts of grieving. You were sort of saying, I think it was you were talking to Lewis Howes, and you're sort of saying even when your marriage ended and you knew no longer, you knew no longer you were going to be there. But it's also telling other people and what are they going to say, because, a lot of your identity was you wanted that perfect, like you sort of, you get married, we sort of have that sort of that dream of, like lasting forever. And then when you kind of know within yourself, it's not even about that person, it's about me. And it's not about sort of like longevity, it's about the growth. And if the growth isn't there, but how did you sort of learn for yourself of going, like if people want to go, look, I'm sort of disappointing others?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's the decision between being authentic to yourself or authentic to the views of others, disappointing yourself or disappointing others. And I have just learned through life that if I'm going to play to the tune of others, which means I'm lying to myself, ultimately I'm lying to them. And I'm actually a disservice to them because I'm bullshitting them, right? Because I'm pandering to them. So the greatest gift I can give them is to be authentic to myself and believe that they will rise up to meet me or they will fall away. But I don't underestimate them by pandering to them, and moreover, killing my own essence, right? The greatest, most sacred job we have on this planet, I think, in this life, is to take care of ourselves. It sounds selfish, but I don't mean it in a narcissistic way. I don't mean it in buying jewelry and clothes and things. It means take care of your essence and your relationship to your truth. Do that, and then the right people will stay or show up.
Oh,
I mean,
bravo,
at the end of
it's
the
beautiful.
day, what's identity on your deathbed?
Right. What is it?
Like,
right?
It
you
is.
know,
It's the present moment. It's
True.
am I alive right now? Do I feel peaceful right now? Am I, living my whole life right now? And that's how we need to live every moment, so that at our deathbed, we're not looking back and going, I should have really not given a shit, and I should have made that decision. I should have gone to that country. I should have given up that job. So we have to do it now, in the moment, here and now.
It's so good.
how powerful is that, Nicola?
Yeah.
We need to do it now. Don't anyone listening who's been putting something off, or they feel that they're living, a dual existence, and they've got to come home back to self. Think about it. We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time, and a good time is being authentic and real. Ultimately, and what you preach, Dr. Shefali, is really is coming back to your true essence. And I love how she filters that through children. Like observing children, what they can teach us. I've always thought the reverse, because that's the way I was brought up. And now I'm coming back to grandkids. I look at them and I go, oh, how what I'm watching, what I'm observing is washing all over me, and you are teaching me, and I now understand that. It's a gift. It's a gift when you change the mindset.
It is. Well, it's a life process, I guess, isn't it? One of those things there, we're all sort of like students of life. And I think for people too, listening, if you are feeling that you're struggling, or you are feeling like that rock bottom, that, sometimes it's good, as much as, we all suck at hates it, when the things aren't feeling good. But I think if that is also a sign when you can go, wow, this is sort of a sign for me. And then whether you do then, do one of your courses, read one of your books, time to talk.
This one in particular, guys.
Yeah, we love
a
that
radical,
one. And I love also
really affected me.
Too, and like the Alicia Keys, I think, made it famous too, your which we love, At the Time of the Awakened Woman. I have to say, if you haven't read it, I won't read the whole thing now. You got it. We'll put it actually, a link to it on our show notes as well.
Definitely.
But it's fantastic. But I love this, when you sort of say there is a time in the life of a woman woman, when she no longer cowers in the shadows of unworthiness, when she no longer plays small so others feel big, when she swaps the role of victim for that of co-creator. And then you go to the last, and then she redefines with compassion and unequivocal self-love.
Yeah.
It's so that I just got a bit of the poem in there, but it's so
Powerful.
magnificent. And the gifts that you've given us, Dr. Shefali, we really do want to thank you.
In so many ways.
And you're
Thank
speaking
you
up.
so much.
That's another
Thank you.
gift, I think.
In so many ways.
You teach women too,
Yeah.
and men, like that's time to, we were sort of like, it's seen, not heard, and our voices sometimes weren't listened to. We didn't feel that we could speak. And I think now, as we're
Don't
older
zip
women,
it anymore.
we love speaking out, and
Yeah.
we're still learning, and we were
Yeah.
people pleasers, weren't we? The
Oh,
generation have brought up that way,
100%.
where it's kind of nice now to sort of feel a bit more, students
Heard.
of life, a bit more heard, and a bit more that we can speak up. And if someone doesn't like it, okay, tune out.
Exactly. Empowering.
And you've got a retreat coming up in Bali, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell
you
us
can
about
go to my
that.
website. Yeah, it's a women's retreat in Bali, and we would love you to come.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
there's a discount code, so they can write to us about it. It's on my website, and I would love your listeners to come. It's in November.
Okay,
So
November.
please, if you're interested, you can write to my office. There's an email on the website. And also, I want to offer your listeners my next Conscious Parenting Institute is starting April 20th. So if your listeners want to join, it's twice a year. The next one will be in September. There's a coupon code 500 off. So you can use it. Go to my website, apply, ask questions. We have a lot of advisors.
Love this.
A team who can answer questions. And you get 2 certificates, a conscious parent coach and a conscious life coach. But the most important thing is you transform yourself and you
Yeah,
transform your whole life.
That's what we love most.
Biggest gift you could give yourself.
I just want to ask a quick question, just listening to what you're doing now. How's midlife for you?
It's interesting, It's the changes in the body are fascinating. I don't feel any older, but I can, in my mind or in my body per se, but I can see the changes, right? I look different. I can see, the body changing. But in terms of feeling, I think it's a stepping into a new era of, really now zoning in on what matters and not carrying the burden of other people's opinions and learning to be alone and learning to be sovereign and really challenging yourself to not waste this last, 25 years of beauty on the same rubbish that you wasted the first 20 or 50 years on. So, I'm 53 now. So this is the time to really push the ante on living authentically.
Well, we call it the no F's era. I love it that so many women get to that stage, which is great.
It sounds like you're in a great place.
And also you can tune in. I do like your podcast, and you had me in tears now, and I like it. You did a mother-daughter one, and it was good. You actually had asked your daughter what she didn't like about you, some of the things there,
Great question.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of kind of...
Was she honest?
Well,
Yes.
How did you feel about that? You were in tears. It was beautiful. Actually, everyone, it was beautiful.
No, I wasn't in tears because I was like she attacked me. I was
No,
just in
not
tears.
because of that.
Oh,
No,
did she
no,
attack? How
no.
did she respond to that?
Well, she was very brutal, and at that time our relationship was under strife anyway because I had just gotten divorced, so it was a lot of stress. Maybe not the right time for me to call her, but it was a good time because she was very honest about my patterns, what I was doing to hurt her, and how I don't listen. And I was just crying out of tears of gratitude. It's on YouTube if anyone wants to go.
No,
watch
I
it.
love that. Tears of gratitude.
Yes, that's
so that's
it.
very, very healthy.
Yes.
because
Yes.
that was her truth.
And it's good to also know, and I think it also your point was too, is that sometimes people look at you, there's no such thing as a guru of going,
Right.
you're so perfect, you parent this is the way, that
Right.
you were owning it, going, I certainly wasn't the perfect parent. And that I think that's sort of like going, we're never fully evolved, we're never with fully awakening. And you can
Yeah.
have, you've had a bottom moments, and then you think, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
Oh no,
There's
the
more.
universe comes
Yeah,
and you get another
slams you
one
down again.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole
But
thing of
tears,
life. But
tears of joy,
tears of
because of
joy.
her honesty. Remember those words, guys?
Yeah.
Because there's too many, oh, I'm fine. Everything's great. I'm so sick of hearing that.
And nothing's
from
perfect.
Everything's, I'm fine.
And can I also say too, is what I really love about all this is that sometimes what the thing is like, you calm the farm. We take things sometimes too seriously,
Yeah.
and I think that's what I liked with when I listened to you at your talk and people were talking about, say, the backpack, and they were furious because the kid wasn't doing this, whatever. And I guess it's with the wisdom, you've heard a lot of it before, but it's like you relax it, going, come on, it's what's this really about? Maybe it's about you. So
Yeah.
well, this is
Own
just,
it, guys.
Is
Own
there,
it.
is there anything that you could just tell us Aussies? Did you like it actually here in Australia, Dr. Shefali?
Of course. I love every time. I love your, sense of humor, your earthiness, your warm welcome. No, I'll come back anytime. So thank you for having me. And it's been an incredible experience to interact with Australians around parenting. And I feel like such a warm reception every time I come.
Oh, well, we, honoured that you
Incredible.
came out, and we do,
in so many
we'll put all the
ways.
links to the show notes about
Yeah.
Bali. That's our back step really for us.
It is.
Us
Have you
Aussies,
been to
we go
Bali
there.
before?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I have.
Yeah, which
Very
is
powerful.
Come to Bali, and there's a coupon code, and I think it's 250 off or 500. They can write to us, and
Oh, that's terrific. Well, it's always good. A little
Yeah.
discount helps here and there. Is there any last words of your takeaway that you could give any of our listeners about, I don't know, whether it's a general
Any
statement,
tips?
but any sort of...
I think just take your self development seriously. Go to a coach, read a book, take a course. This is a pivotal thing you can do that will have a ripple effect on everything. If there's one thing you can do to change your entire life, is to learn to develop yourself. And on that note, I'll just say I do give a 30-day free gift pass to people to join my community where I have all my courses. So it's for free for 30 days. And I'm meditating now with our people. We are meditating every day. So if people are interested in just coming to join the community for 30 days for free, they can write to my office. And that's on my website.
Great starting point.
Well, why not?
Great
That's
starting
fantastic.
point.
Well, we've
Yeah.
got some of our signature questions.
We sure do.
Did you want to
Wow.
shoot?
I'm dying to ask this question. If you had the opportunity of meeting someone over the back fence, who would that be and why?
Oh my goodness, I've already met Oprah, so I would say somebody from the past, maybe Martin Luther King or, Nelson Mandela, somebody like that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Wow, fantastic.
Beautiful.
And on that quick note, before
Peace.
we're fortunate, was saying, we met Oprah when she was in Brisbane, and she's coming on our podcast, which is great. Now, you were a guest on hers, and you were in Montecito, sitting under that tree. Quickly, how was that for you?
Yeah, it's incredible. She's an incredible, present, generous, smart, articulate, wise. I mean, she is the whole package. You'll see, when you meet her, she's beyond incredible.
Yeah.
How fantastic.
I felt that energy when I met her.
We loved it. We were doing the jumping
just
up and
light
down
coming
moment,
off her.
whatever. I've met her a few times, but having her as our guest
Amazing.
is a big thrill.
Yeah.
And what makes you happy?
What makes me happy? I'm really kind of happy all the time. I'm not very sad. Being sad is okay with me. You see, I'm not. I don't panic if I'm sad or if I'm unconscious or if I got upset. So, what makes me happy? What makes me happy is being in nature, reading a book, traveling. I love to travel. That has to happen almost every other month. Being with friends, I think I'm just a regular girl, like what makes most people have good food. You know,
Yeah.
makes everyone happy.
Yeah, I love that when we ask that question is how many people talk about going into nature. When I'm feeling low or sad, I go and plunge into the ocean. Not everyone has that opportunity, but there's always a tree nearby somewhere. Just get into nature. It's so healing.
One step at a time,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
go for a walk,
Yeah.
deep breathe. I walk
Yep.
with my dog, and it's interesting too. Most people, when we've spoken to and interviewed over 200 guests, it's the simplicity things really that does at the end of the day make you happy, you know, like having a chat with the girlfriend, speaking from the heart, being authentic. Well, look, you know, you've certainly made our hearts
You
sort of
have.
sing. We're very grateful that you came on from New York to Sydney back fence.
Yay.
It's just an absolute treat having you here. We can watch this on YouTube. We're going to have all the links on our show notes. So watch us, listen to us, share it with a friend. This is for everyone, grandparents, first-time parents, everybody, for Dr. Shefali. You know, we're really grateful. Now, we like the 5-star ratings. I don't know whether you know about this, Dr. Shefali, but Di gives her own rating system. It's our little thing. I don't know. It started from there. How many stars does Dr. Shefali
Well,
from
it's
New
normally
York,
5 out of
get,
5,
you know,
right?
Like, it is.
It's
That's
normally
right.
5 out of
We've got-
5.
Yeah.
I have to honestly say she gets 100 out of 5.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know why? Because you're giving back. You're helping people to heal. That's the gift. You give to yourself and to others. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care,
And
Dr.
the C's
Shefali.
okay. I was going to
Thank
say, what
you.
grade you got a C? You know?
Loved every minute of
Absolutely
this.
loved it. Ciao, ciao. Thanks for
care.
listening. Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So much.
Wow.